Hello, everybody. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. At the bottom of the hour, I have a wonderful guest, Caroline Glick. I saw a story where she was supposed to appear at a college in Texas. She'll provide us with the details. But it was canceled because they were concerned about the ruckus it would cause among those who object to the state of Israel. And I really am a great admirer of Caroline Glick's. I want to hear about this. And this is what's going on our college campuses, and you and I are paying for this stuff. We're paying for it through tuition. If you have kids going and you're helping them or paying for it. But our tax dollars go to almost every university or college in the country except Hillsdale College, as far as I know. Why are we paying for our own destruction? Why are we paying to indoctrinate younger people with poison? Why are we paying to have all these kids come over here on student visas who hate our country, many of them from the Middle East, to spread their poison? Whatever happened to free speech on our college campuses, debate, inquiry, education? This is a very, very troubling area, and we have got to address it somehow, some way. We cannot allow these institutions to be turned over to these people, these radical leftists. All right. My good friend Caroline Glick, how are you, ma'am?
Fine. How are you doing, Mark?
I am doing great. Now, came across this little article, said you were supposed to be at the University of Texas, and then something happened. What happened?
Well, I was supposed to speak at the University of Texas, Austin yesterday in a speech that was organized by one of the rabbis on the campus, and actually a few of the Christian organizations there wanted me to come and speak about the Palestinian conflict with Israel. And so I'm in the United States now for some meetings and speaking engagements, and I agreed to do it. And lo and behold, I found out, we flew in from Israel on last Wednesday night, and I think I found out on Wednesday during the day that a bunch of the Jewish organizations on campus had decided to boycott my speech and tell the other organizations that were sponsoring me that they shouldn't allow me to speak because it would get all of the anti-Zionists on campus angry if I come. And so they managed to get everybody to pull out, and so there was no speech.
All right, let me get this straight. You're invited by some Jewish organizations.
Mm-hmm. And
other what's that?
And Christian.
And Christian organizations. Mm-hmm. Then some Jewish organizations say, no, you shouldn't come here because we'll take heat. We'll rile up these other groups. Is that correct?
Exactly, and then what's most extraordinary and really horrible about this whole thing is that then the branch of Students for Justice in Palestine, which is an anti-Semitic hate group that's been running around intimidating universities, professors, students, administrators, not to allow Israelis to appear on campus, be hosted by any of the faculty or students on board, they posted this statement on their Facebook page where they said, congratulating themselves, and they said, when you don't even have to mobilize to shut bleep down, shout out to Palestine Solidarity Committee and the work we've done over the past few years. And then they have the link to the Breitbart or to the Allgemeine article, Jewish students at Texas U cancel lecture by author Glick for fear of upsetting anti-Israel activists.
And they put this on their Facebook. Now, these organizations on these college campuses are, in effect, these colleges give their imprimatur to these organizations, and some of them are actually they offset their expenses by being subsidized by some of these colleges, aren't they?
A large amount of the budgets of Students for Justice in Palestine, which is actually a fictitious organization. It's not registered anywhere. It's just an organization by name, and a lot of their activities are funded by the students themselves, the student councils of all of these different universities. And my contention and my hope for the incoming Trump administration is that their actions, which involve engaging in openly anti-Semitic activities and transforming university campuses into hostile environments for Jewish students and for Israelis in violation of the civil rights both of students and Israeli nationals who are invited to speak at these campuses. That's a violation of Title IX of standing federal law, and that the U.S. government, if they were to enforce it to protect the civil rights of Jews, then they would deny federal funding to these universities that allow these hate groups to operate on their campuses. And I think that if the federal government would do that, that would, if not end the BDS movement, it would certainly stop it in its tracks and empower students to stand up to these bullies who are making their lives living hells. But
so far, the Obama Justice Department hasn't done any such thing.
Needless to say, despite the constant requests by the Zionist Organization of America, the Louis Brandeis Center, and a host of other organizations that are involved with this, for the Justice Department to protect the civil rights of Jewish students on campuses, the Justice Department has refused to do so and has not taken any actions from the Civil Rights Division, at least no effective actions from the Justice Department for the past 8 years to protect Jewish students on U.S. college campuses.
How about the Anti-Defamation League? Have they been leading the charge here?
Right. So the Anti-Defamation League, it used to be a Jewish organization that was staffed by leftists, but increasingly over the past few years, it's become a leftist organization staffed by Jews, and we saw this with their actions towards Trump during the campaign, where they claimed that his final ad in the campaign, where he showed a picture of George Soros, the far-left financier, and called them, I don't know, a banker or something like that. Well, George Soros may have been born Jewish, but he's an anti-Semite. He has been using his wealth and influence to undermine Israel, to back anti-Israel organizations in the United States and in Israel, to harm and bring down the Israeli government. So, this is not a friend of the Jews. And then they were saying that by showing his picture, the Trump campaign was being anti-Semitic, but that's ridiculous. I mean, that's just saying that anti-Semitism isn't.
By the way, I just have to say for the record, he would say he's not an anti-Semite, of course. Right. Soros.
I don't know what he would say. What would he say? That he just gives millions and millions of dollars to organizations that
want to destroy Israel, right?
And want to destroy the American alliance with the Jewish state. I mean, you can say anything you want. That doesn't mean that it's true.
All right, let me ask you this about the Anti-Defamation League. They've come out very strongly against Steve Bannon. Are you familiar with Steve Bannon?
Yeah, I don't know him personally, but I certainly know Breitbart, and I know the people who work at Breitbart, and I knew Andrew Breitbart of blessed memory, who he worked with in forming the Breitbart news organization, and by all accounts, by every single Jew who's worked for Breitbart, who works for it, who has had their stuff published in Breitbart, and who knows Steve Bannon, and anybody who's followed the Breitbart thing. I mean, the ADL's allegation that Bannon is an anti-Semite it really amounts to slander, and it just shows again, that this is an organization that is about getting in front of the radicals in the Democratic Party at the expense of the communal interests of the Jews. And what's most disgusting about it, and as I see it, is the ADL is an organization that was formed by Justice Louis Brandeis to protect the civil rights of Jews. And what they're doing is the exact opposite. By going after the very good friends and supporters of the Jewish community, people like Stephen Bannon, while saying that criticizing George Soros, who has worked so hard to undermine the Jewish community of the United States as well as the state of Israel, is anti-Semitic. They're really harming the communal interests of Jews, and I think that that's really distressing.
Isn't the new head of the ADL a former Obama flunky?
Yeah, Jonathan Greenblatt. He's a person with no past involvement with the Jewish community. He worked for Valerie Jarrett's Office of Public Engagement in the White House before he took on the role of director of the ADL, and it raised a lot of eyebrows at the time because this is one of the most well-established Jewish organizations in the United States, and it was not clear why he was given the nod to replace Abe Foxman, who had led the organization for decades. With a mixed record, just like everybody else has, but certainly it was a Jewish civil rights organization. And now it's just become something else, and it's really been hollowed out, and I think subverted, again, to the detriment of the communal interests of the Jews of America.
Now, do you think, you write about these things, you're a keen observer and analyst, and do you think that this administration, the incoming Trump administration, will be much more supportive of Israel than the existing administration? How can it not be?
Well, first of all, it'd be very difficult to be less supportive than
than
the outgoing administration. I mean, that's just clear. But aside from that, absolutely, Trump and his senior advisors, I mean, they're all extraordinary supporters of the American alliance with Israel. They understand why it's so important to the United States itself. They are very well aware and have stated on numerous occasions that they recognize the basic reality, which is that Israel is the United States' only stable ally in the Middle East and the only reliable one. And so this is a sea change in a position of the American government. You have his senior advisors on Israel and on international affairs who have stated that they don't think that respecting Jewish property rights anywhere, including in Jerusalem and in Judea and Samaria, is an obstacle to peace. This is, of course, the exact opposite of what the Obama administration said, which said that Jews must not be allowed to exercise property rights in these areas, and that doing so is somehow or another antithetical to the cause of peace, and has supported the Palestinian view that a future Palestinian state has to first be ethnically cleansed of Jews by force. Hundreds of thousands of Jews should be forcibly deported, expelled from their homes in order to make way for a Jew-free Palestine. These are positions that have effectively been supported by the Obama administration, and the Trump team has made clear that that is not going to be their position, which in and of itself, without doing anything, just not doing bad things, that already makes them different and really distinguishes them as extraordinary friends of Israel.
The name of your book, tell the American people again.
It's called The Israeli Solution, a one-state plan for peace in the Middle East. And you were nice enough to endorse it, Mark, when it came out. So
well, it's a great book, and we're going to link to it now. So the hell with the University of Texas. We're going to link to it now.
Fantastic, thanks. I have to say one last thing, that
yes.
The amazing outcome of this University of Texas boycott is that in the past 24 hours I've been given offers to speak at another 7 universities and at other places throughout the state. So I guess I have to thank them. I don't know.
In a weird way, I guess so.
In a weird way, right? Anyway, well, thank you, Mark. Thank you for having me on your show.
Well, all the best to you and your family, and God bless you.
You too.
All right, Caroline Glick. She is terrific. Pro-American, pro-Israel, pro-liberty, just terrific. Her book, The Israeli Solution, came out about 18 months ago. It's an outstanding book. We'll link to it on Mark Levin Show Facebook and Mark Levin Show Twitter. And I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Electoral College is under attack by the left. There's not much left of the Constitution, ladies and gentlemen. There's not much left of it. All these people who oppose Article 5, they would take Article 5 out of the Constitution. They claim to be federalists. They claim to support the 10th Amendment and federalism. They claim to want government by the state legislature. And yet, when it's time to step up, they really don't. They'd rather whine and complain about what's going on in Washington and delude themselves and us to believe that an election cycle here and there, we can reverse this structural damage that's been done to our magnificent Constitution by the left. Listen to them on radio. Listen to them on TV. They don't have a clue. The Democrats are always resolute in their effort to destroy the Constitution and the protections that exist for you and me. Here's Harry Reid. Harry Reid, who's now gone, effectively gone. Replaced by another malcontent miscreant, Charles Schmucky Chucky Schumer. Here's Harry Reid at a press conference today. Cut 3, go.
Manu, I think it would be educational for the country to have some hearings on the electoral college system. No wonder that she did this, and no wonder there's some concern. When the votes are finally tallied, we've been told yesterday she will win the election by more than 2 million votes.
No, she didn't win the election by more than 2 million votes. She won the popular vote, you idiot. Now, to show you what a fool Harry Reid is, if we were to have presidential elections determined solely by the popular vote, nobody would set foot in Nevada, because Nevada would be inconsequential, as would about 40 other states. They just would not matter. They wouldn't matter. They'd be irrelevant. Now, I've talked about this over and over and over again. Last week, this week, on radio, on Levin TV. I talked about it years ago when it came up in the George W. Bush election of 2000, where he legitimately defeated Al Gore. We don't need to entertain these arguments. Well, if it was only the popular vote, Trump would have campaigned here rather than there. Don't give up the principle. The principle is we don't elect a president through the popular vote. We use a constitutional system, the Electoral College. Because if we give up the principled argument on the Electoral College, there's no reason for a Senate. You've heard my arguments. You've heard them repeated by the backbenchers. There'd be no reason for a Senate, 2 senators from every state, because that's not reflective of the population. What these people really want is an all-powerful centralized government. They don't really care about elections. They want to control the government. So they already control the unelected parts of the government. Do we control the courts? No. Do we control the EPA? No. Do we control the education department? They control this massive federal leviathan, the administrative state. And they want to continue to expand its power and continue to devour individuals. Your individual liberty. Your right to own property, your right to conduct business, and your right to be successful and pass your success on to your children. This is tyrannical. These people are tyrants. Don't give up the arguments. Well, you know, just popular vote. Donald Trump would vote a campaign here and there. But forget that talking point. Stick to the rule. What these people want is mobocracy. Let me explain the status to you. The status doesn't believe in republicanism. They don't believe in democracy. They believe in iron-fisted, centralized government. That's the great threat the framers feared. That's the great threat throughout history, throughout humankind. But they want to run it. They want to decide things. So they cloak their totalitarian ambitions in populism. They cloak it in populism. We have to have popular votes for senators. We need to have popular votes for presidents. You need to have free education, free health care, free this, free that. It's the bait that they use to hook their victims. And most people don't spend a lot of time thinking about this. And they will react emotionally to arguments that are based on emotion. They will react to class warfare like somebody stealing something from them. They believe that equality is not a matter of equal justice. Equality is a matter of material equality, which, of course, is absurd. There can never be material equality. Even those who parrot that and argue for that, they're not poor. They're not living in Camden, New Jersey, or Newark, New Jersey, or East Palo Alto, or what have you, or East St. Louis, or North Philadelphia. The people who talk about this, it's not where Barack Obama lives. That's not where he vacations. That's not where he hangs out. If this is what they preach, we have got to stand up to this, folks. The attack on the Electoral College. Now that's supposedly a legitimate debate. We have a president of the United States who's done severe damage to separation of powers, and we need to push back. And we're always on our heels, and we're always playing defense. Well, let me tell you something. Even in any sport, if you're always playing defense, well, you're losing. You can't always play defense. Article 5 is offense. Convention of States, that's offense. We do not have to put up with this. Unlike the left, who take to the streets and damage people's property and their homes and burn things and attack the cops, burn the American flag and all the rest, we don't support any of that. We have 33 state legislatures. It takes 34 to have a convention of states. We could have 34 governorships. We have 33, and North Carolina is in dispute. You'll hear people talk about, this is unbelievable. Look at this Republican wave. It's just fantastic. Great. Now what? Well, what do you mean, well? What are we going to do with it? It's like the stars are all aligned. You can't even get a think tank in Washington, D.C. that pretends to be conservative or libertarian to support the Constitution. I'm not going to embarrass one of the think tanks, which you know quite well, but here I'm looking on their page from 2012. Nullification is unconstitutional. Well, it is. Jefferson rejected it. Madison rejected it. They all rejected it. So what's their solution? In the Virginia resolutions, Madison asserted the power of the states, quote, to interpose for arresting the progress of evil and for maintaining within the respective limits the authorities' rights and liberties appertaining to them, unquote. This meant various state actions designed to arouse public opposition, challenge federal actions, and ultimately change or stop objectionable action. Like what? They don't tell us. The constitutional way to change laws, rejecting nullification as an option, does not mean the states or people have no recourse. The Constitution itself lays out the best path to change unconstitutional laws. Object to the law and change opinions. In the political process, defund and slow its implementation. Change or repeal the law. Challenge it in the courts, and if necessary, amend the Constitution. What do they intentionally leave off this page? The Convention of States way to amend the Constitution. Here you have an organization that preaches constitutionalism and limited government, and purposely, in 2012, does not discuss Article 5 Convention of States. That is sad. That is truly, truly sad. Meanwhile, the Democrats attacking the Electoral College, and we're forced to argue, no, the popular vote, and this is why you can't have the popular vote. Why don't we argue for popular votes through Article 5 for state legislatures? We can do that. Something we ought to do. No, but instead we'll have hearings, you see, on the Electoral College and how terrible it is. Now, one caveat here. It should worry Republicans. that we're having a problem with the popular vote in these presidential elections. We're not having a problem with the popular vote when it comes to the House of Representatives. We're not having a problem with the popular vote when it comes to each senator in each state. Rubio had 200,000 more votes than Trump. Burr had tens of thousands of more votes in North Carolina than Trump. Ron Johnson, who was written off as dead, and still hasn't thanked me, by the way. That's all right. I get it. Had more popular votes than Trump. Toomey in Pennsylvania, another one, had more popular votes than Trump. Trump now has under 47% of the popular vote for his election to the presidency. The left will use that to try and delegitimize him. But they would delegitimize anybody regardless whether they have the popular vote or not. What I'm trying to express is he has about the same popular vote as Romney had, about the same popular vote, slightly more than McCain, even though the population has significantly increased. You won't hear this on the Fox News channel. You won't hear this in talk radio. You won't read this in many places. But it should be concerning. These blue states that he pulled over, these industrial blue states, that was very, very important. But he lost votes somewhere else, probably in the suburbs. There was not a net addition of votes, is my point. During the Reagan Revolution in 1980 and 84, there was a massive addition of votes. There weren't swapped votes. You had a significant number of blue-collar Democrats voting for Ronald Reagan in both landslides on top of all the other voters that he had, which is why he had 51% of the vote in a three-way race in 1980 and almost 60% of the vote in 1984. And almost a clean sweep of the states, but for Minnesota, and the District of Columbia is not a state, even though it thinks it is. That's a landslide. That's a revolution. That's a mandate. The Republicans at the local and state level are wiping out the Democrats, wiping them out. It began in 2010 with the Tea Party movement. It went into 2012. It went into 2014, 2016. It hasn't stopped. It hasn't stopped. This is where the strength of the conservative movement is. Not in the presidency, in the states. And this is where the strength of liberty is. Not to keep taking it from the EPA and the Interior Department and the Education Department. The states don't need to take this. They need to secede and nullify. We'll leave that to the sanctuary cities and states. Just use the Constitution to save the Constitution. I know I'm supposed to talk about myself, the life and times of Mark Levin, talk about myself, and prove to you that I'm a Renaissance man. I don't need to prove anything about myself. This is very, very important. I'll be right back. Well, Mark, 2 million illegal aliens voted. Wow, and they voted for all these Republicans, too, for the Senate and for governor and for state houses and state senates. 2 million illegal aliens? They said, you know what? We're not going to vote for Trump, but we'll vote for, Ron Johnson and Toomey and all these governors and these state houses. Come on, that is so stupid. Of course there's some percentage. Doesn't get you to 2 million. Just absurd. You know, the way you improve is not to mess around with the facts. It's to take the facts and improve. Whether you're a student, whether you're a businessman, whatever you are. You have to take the facts. You don't delude yourself with absurd comments, absurd thinking. Well, he wanted this illegal vote. Well, he would have changed his campaigning. Well, what would he? Well, he might have campaigned in California and done what? Win California? Win the popular vote there? Maybe more people would have been pissed off and turned up. I hate that guy. Let's vote him out, Ingrid. So what if? These are the facts. These are the facts. Anyway, that's the situation. Where are all the Democrats? Where are the president and the rest of them going on and on about how it's very unhealthy, very dangerous to keep undermining the legitimate results of an election? Again, the Democrats attack the Electoral College. And the idiocy of this debate is just really beyond belief. You've got some Democrats who say we need to get rid of the Electoral College, and you have some Democrats say, no, let's use it in order to defeat Trump. Let's encourage the electors to vote for Hillary against Trump. You see, the ends justify the means for the left. You and I were consistent. You're elected by the Electoral College. That's how it works. The candidates know it in advance. If you want to run for president and you're running for vice president, this is the rule. This is how Hillary Clinton's husband became president. This is how Al Gore became vice president. This is the way it works. And if you don't get the popular vote, you don't get the popular vote. I think it's a warning sign to Republicans, but that has nothing to do with the outcome of this election. The fact of the matter is, we shouldn't change the Electoral College, that towns and cities who nullify federal laws and become sanctuary cities and states are undermining the Constitution. And those of us who embrace Article 5, Convention of the States, we are trying to strengthen what's left of the Constitution. Really quite simple, don't you think? Let's go to Murph, Las Vegas, Nevada, the great KDWN. How are you?
Good, sir. Thanks for your time. Hey, listen, I can't take any more of this popular vote argument from these people anymore. These campaigns are structured to go for the Electoral College vote. They target those certain states. If they're going for the popular vote, Trump would campaign more in California.
Listen, I know this is being repeated all over talk radio. These are the talking points that Trump's people are putting out, and I'm telling you, this is not a good talking point. I don't know if he would campaign more in California and get more votes out of a hardcore Democrat state. That's not my argument. I don't care. My argument is there's an Electoral College. That's the way it works. I don't care where Trump campaigned or Reagan campaigned or James Madison campaigned. Who cares? There's nothing to do with it. The fact of the matter is, when a candidate decides to run, they understand what the Constitution says, and if they lose under the Electoral College, they're the loser. That's it. Now, to help you out, Murph, a little bit, the fact of the matter is that Trump's popular vote total, Romney's popular vote total, and McCain's popular vote total are almost the same. Does that concern you, or is that not a big deal?
No, I'm concerned about a lot of it, but he got it. He wanted. End of story is where
I'm. I already talked about that. Now I'm on to another subject, pal. Try and follow me. 3 past presidential elections. McCain, Romney, Trump. Almost the same popular vote. That's not good, is it?
It's pretty sad.
I mean, what I'm saying is we can't sit on our laurels here and say, wow, we had a massive wave. You know where the wave elections are occurring? They're occurring in the states. Not your state so much, but you understand what I mean, these other states.
Well, I agree with you, and I respect you, Mark, and I respect the Convention of the States, so I appreciate your time.
No, but I don't want to blow off of course, the liberals are nuts, so I'm not responding to the popular vote in the context of what they're up to. I am saying, let's step back, let's look at this. The population is growing, and the popular vote is not. So we got to figure out ways to do a better job to get our message across and to win over more and more and more people. Because we won some blue-collar voters in some of these blue states where he won very close elections, but he won them in Wisconsin, in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, and I'm from Pennsylvania. That's where I was born. But he obviously lost votes in other places. So we got to figure out what to do. One of the things we need to do is secure the border, because it's quite obvious that what the Democrats are up to is importing Democrats. So we can start there. All right, Murph, I appreciate your call, buddy. I really do. And I know it's annoying to listen to these liberals go on and on about the popular vote. They don't care. Listen, if they cared about the popular vote, why don't they support the popular vote in all the states when it came to same-sex marriage? They rejected it, didn't they? So when they don't win elections, as I've said a billion times, they take their agenda into the unelected branches. They take their agenda into the courts. They take their agenda into the executive branch with the administrative state. So they do not accept results where they lose. They just don't. Whether it's elections, whether it's courts, whatever it is. And now again, they want to take a whack at the Constitution. What's left of it. Yep. All right, I don't want all these people call, well, a lot of Trump's votes went to Johnson. Why do we have to do this? I mean, I'm not interested. A lot of Trump's votes went to Johnson. Well, you always have these third-party candidates running. I don't know why we have to play special pleader here or defense counsel. We won fair and square. Celebrate. We have a problem with the popular vote. The libertarians are always going to have a candidate. So that's not an answer. The answer is, how do we get 55, 57, 58, 60% of the vote? Because we're going to need it. As for the popular vote, well, if Donald Trump had campaigned in California, he would have gotten more votes? I see. Or maybe, just maybe, more Democrats would have turned out. But what's the point? Well, they would have adjusted the way they voted. Really. So he would have gone in the deep, dark blue areas and campaigned as heavily as possible to win? Maybe he would have lost by a bigger popular vote margin. The point is this. He won the electoral college vote. That's how you win the presidency, or he will. That's how you win the presidency. You don't need to make alternative arguments. But look at the popular vote. It's becoming a problem at the presidential level, not at the state level, not for senators, not for congressmen, not for state senators, not for state representatives, but at the presidential level, it's a problem. And I'm sorry if this is bursting bubbles all over the place, but it is. You can Google it. You don't need me. Take a look at it. You know, no wonder these guys want to talk about themselves and what they ate and their last bowel movement. It's just a lot easier. Kick your legs up. Well, let me tell you about me. It started in a log cabin. Yes, it started in a log cabin. I really did. I don't mean to date myself, but... And then the next thing that happened... All right, whatever. God, I love this audience. The smartest audience in the world. That's what you are. You're not fooled by anyone. You're not fooled by anything. It's my great honor to be here. And I will not abuse this position. I will always be prepared. And I'll see you in just a few minutes. Tonight, a great Levin TV. And you can join us. You can join the Conservative Review TV network. You have to call 844-LEVIN-TV, 844-LEVIN-TV, or go to crtv.com. It's a beautiful gift to give somebody. It'll last the entire year, the entire subscription. It's an annual subscription. 844-LEVIN-TV or crtv.com. You're going to want to get it. In 2 weeks, our discount runs out. So in 2 weeks, it goes to the regular price of $99 a year to hear Levin TV, Michelle Malkin Investigates, the Steven Crowder Show, the Mark Stein Show. And we're going to add more. We're going to add more platforms. But if you want to get in on the ground level now at crtv.com, you got to act within 2 weeks or so you can get the $10 discount. Now, if you're a veteran or if you're in the military, because I have a lot of clout in this place, it is named after me after all, you're going to get $30 off. until I say you don't. In other words, until the bosses really come down on me. So, if you're a vet, if you're in the military, you get $30 off, but you need to act. CRTV.com. They'll tell you what to do. They'll get you all set. They'll tell you how to watch. Or call 844-LEVIN-TV. We have wonderful customer service people. They'll take their time. They'll walk you through 844-LEVIN-TV. Let's see. Let us go to Tom in Los Angeles, 870 The Answer, our great affiliate. How are you?
Hello, Mark. How are you?
All right, my friend. Go.
Well, I'm the teacher. I've spoken to you before. I'm an avid listener.
Thank you. 60 seconds, though. I want you to get under the finish line. Go ahead.
Okay, well, I had a very interesting conversation with the kids today. They really know what's going on with the Trump protests, and it worked perfect parallels with the revolution, the French Revolution. I could compare the radicals with the conservatives, those that wanted to make change, those that wanted to conserve, and I was able to talk about the Constitution and how we want to go back to...
And, of course, the French Revolution and Rousseau and all those folks are the fools that are in the street right now. Tom, I wish I had more time, brother. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, and emergency personnel. See you on Levin TV in 2 minutes. See you on the radio tomorrow. God bless each and every one of you. You want to hear something funny? In a sick way? That fat pig inbred who runs North Korea doesn't like being called fat. So from now on, his name is Kim Jong-Fat. Just like Keith Ellison. I guess he wanted to be kind of like Malcolm X. Will from now on this program be Keith X. Kim Jong-Fat. This is Fox News. North Korea begs China to stop calling Kim Jong-un fat. North Korea has made a state request to officials in China pleading for them to stop referring to glorious leader Kim Jong-un as fat. Ministers have reportedly asked their neighbors to refrain from referring to the chunky Swiss cheese fan as Jin San Pong or Kim Fatty III. Apparently Kim Fatty III, or Kim Jong-Fat, is a widely used nickname for Kim in China, along with Jin Pong Pong, Kim Fat Fatty, or Jin Shan Fei, Kim Abundant III. Now, according to the Apple Daily in Hong Kong, terrified North Korean government officials have called on their old comrades to take action before heads roll. Now, what they're saying is, if they keep calling him Kim Jong-Fat, Kim Jong-Fat will get so ticked off he'll round up these officials who have communications with the Chinese and murder them, like he did his uncle. When his uncle didn't sufficiently clap and in fact fell asleep during one of the meetings, Kim Jong-Fat, the inbred, decided to kill his uncle. By marriage, his uncle by marriage. And so what they did is they tied him to a post and they shot him with an anti-aircraft round. So he was obliterated. He ceased to exist in any form. Because Kim Jong-Fat was offended. Now, Kim Jong-Fat wasn't elected by the electoral college system in North Korea either. And Kim Jong-Fat has a pen and a phone too. And Kim Jong-Fat doesn't believe in separation of powers either. And Kim Jong-Fat believes in getting things done. And under Kim Jong-Fat and his fat father and his fat grandfather, also murderous dictators, genocidal nutjobs, Kim Jong-Fat the First, Kim Jong-Fat the Second, and Kim Jong-Fat the Third. No, I won't be visiting North Korea. I'll leave that to Dennis Rodham. There is no great income inequality gap among the masses. course, there is among the leaders because the leaders have so much work to do, you know. They're so brilliant. But among the masses, there you have the workers' paradise, the proletariat. Yes, there you have it right there, ladies and gentlemen, a well-planned society with massive political gulags to deal with the miscreants because, you know, they're getting into the way of paradise. They're getting into the way of the general will of the people. And so there are millions of people behind fences where they're eating roots from trees and leaves off trees and insects on the floor and so forth, if they can eat anything. And then there's the rest of the population, so happy and thrilled because the capitalist pigs are all gone. And we just have a paradise, a socialist communist paradise, where everybody's equal. Everybody's equal. Nobody can take advantage of anybody else. There's no materialism to speak of. It's just a spiritual place where you focus on what matters in life, like eating and breathing.
Mark Levin.
Hello, everybody. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. You know, we mock Barack Obama as a narcissist, don't we? We count the number of times he uses the word I and me in a speech, which is really remarkable how many times he does. Well, Mr. Producer, I'm concerned that's what radio's turning into. Just me, I, me, I. I'm going, oh. Yes. Well, I will not do that to you. Me will not do that to you. There's two people I want to focus in on in the first hour of this program. Got a lot to do. It's going to be exciting, interesting, substantive, so I won't waste your time. Two people I want to talk to. One is Keith Ellison, the potential head of the Democrat National Committee. And one is Bob Corker, who is saying he's still in the mix for Secretary of State. Both of these men are a disaster. Bob Corker helped arm the Iranians and undermine the treaty provision of the Constitution. And I cannot believe that Donald Trump is seriously considering this man. I know the groupies in radio, they're all excited. Oh, this may be the best ever. Well, why don't they participate in the process now to make sure it's the best ever cabinet? Because it matters. This is the time you need to speak up. And frankly, I am concerned that there's any serious consideration being given to Bob Corker, who almost on his own accord ripped the treaty provision out of the Constitution of the United States and handed it to Barack Obama. He is as much responsible for the Iranians getting $150 billion, perfecting their ICBMs, getting nuclear warheads, as Barack Obama. And I'm going to deal with this Rand Paul in a minute, too. Rand Paul ran for the Senate. Now that he's won, we didn't hear a word from him. He got his 1% vote in the presidential election. Now he's going to dictate who the Secretary of State is. Well, we'll get to that in a minute, too. Chip off the old block there when it comes to foreign policy. You know, ladies and gentlemen, there's a difference between radical interventionism of the John McCain, Lindsey Graham type and dangerous isolationism of the Rand Paul type. Both are to be rejected. I'm very thankful Rand Paul wasn't nominated to be president of the United States because when it comes to foreign policy, he is of the Code Pink variety. That's right. He's Code Pink. Let's take a listen to this. Let us go to cut 2, Mr. Producer. Go.
You know, John Bolton's been stopped once before because he's an outlier. He doesn't fit within the mainstream of either parties. And really, you want your chief diplomat to be a diplomat, not a bomb thrower. So someone who's advocating war would probably be if we still had a secretary of war.
You know, you're a pretty dumb guy, honestly. John Bolton's advocating war? Maybe you didn't hear the phrase that Reagan used to use, that your father used to denounce, Senator Paul, which is peace through strength. I know you would capitulate to Russia. I know you would capitulate to China. I know you would capitulate to every third world dictator. I know you would slash the military in half if you could. I know you believe that we're safe in America because we have an ocean on either side of the country and all the rest. Actually, that is the throwback mentality, Mr. Paul, and that's yours. And that's yours. John Bolton is not a warmonger. John Bolton has served honorably in 2 administrations, the Reagan and Bush administrations. I worked with him at the Justice Department. He's a brilliant man. The President of the United States will set the agenda. And you sit there because you know there's 52 Republicans and you threaten a filibuster. And you go even further. Listen to this one. Cut 1. Go.
On the list of ones that have been put out there, I think Bob Corker is a more thoughtful, reasonable, someone who I think comes from the realist point of view. In the
you hear that? Bob Corker, the realist point of view. Bob Porker, yeah, Porker. Yeah, that's a good one. Bob Corker, the porker, surrendered our constitutional powers to the President of the United States. I thought you were Mr. Constitution, Rand. You want to debate on this? I'm happy to debate you, too. Now you're backing a senator who helped create a scenario in which the filibuster could be used to prevent opposition to Obama's Iran deal, when in fact it should have been submitted to the United States Senate as a treaty requiring 2/3 of the senators present. So I guess if Bolton's a warmonger, what does that make you, Rand? A man who hates the Constitution, I guess, despite you waving it around. You cannot love the Constitution and support Bob Corker at the same time. You cannot. Bob Corker, in marriage with Barack Obama, did more damage to the treaty clause of the Constitution of the United States than any senator in American history. And Rand Paul thinks that's great. And Rand Paul has the gonads to trash John Bolton, who has served this country in an incredibly brilliant way. I'll be right back. One of Donald Trump's weak areas is foreign policy. It's a bit incoherent, isn't it? I believe it is. I'll have to wait for Victor Davis Hanson to write something at National Review Online to explain to us exactly what it is. Maybe tomorrow, maybe the next day. But in any event, I find it a bit incomprehensible. The problem, of course, with Hillary Clinton is it was comprehensible and it was a disaster. So Donald Trump needs a strong expert in foreign policy at the State Department and somebody who is thoroughly competent, who can give him the kind of counsel that he needs. And then Trump will make the decisions, and then the Secretary of State will carry them out. Rand Paul, when it comes to foreign policy, is closer to Code Pink than he is to any kind of mainstream conservatism. And that's really problematic. It's very problematic. And now it turns out that he is supporting for Secretary of State a man who eviscerated the treaty clause of the Constitution, who is Barack Obama's partner when it comes to the Iran deal. After the fact, of course, he's protested the Iran deal. But Bob Corker, as chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee for about 14 weeks, made the Iran deal possible. I cannot imagine that Donald Trump, who condemned the Iran deal, I cannot imagine that Donald Trump is considering Bob Corker for Secretary of State, given his record. One of the countries that the new administration is going to have to tangle with now, in one way or another, economically, militarily, foreign policy, intelligence-wise, is going to be an empowered Iran, thanks to Obama and Bob Corker. So why in the world would you put that man in charge of the State Department? I have great confidence that Donald Trump will not. Surely he can't be that blind to this man. Surely his children aren't. White House dossier, Keith Koffler. This guy's good. And he wrote over a year ago, I keep reading today that the White House folded, caved, threw up the white flag, rolled over on its sword, and died a humiliating death by accepting legislation by Senator Bob Corker, giving Congress, quote, a role, unquote, in the Iran negotiations. In this case, that's a bit of a spin that both the White House and Republicans want you to buy, because Republicans want you to think they've etched out some kind of a victory over Obama and finally stood up to one of his power grabs. This is also McConnell, that buffoon McConnell, who this guy Cliff White, the Foundation for whatever, Defense. McConnell appoints this guy in August to some council or commission. And he writes a little nasty column in the Washington Times, far-right radio, like Mark Levin. The hell is this guy? You going to cave into McConnell because you want an appointment? Don't write stupid stuff, and at least reveal to the people who are reading the Washington Times and your op-ed piece that one of the reasons you're slobbering all over McConnell is because he appointed you to a position that you wanted. I was stunned, pathetic. But let's go back to Mr. Corker. Because Koffler's right when he says that the Republicans are trying to demonstrate that they really stood up to Obama when they sold out completely to Obama, thanks to Bob Corker. The United States Senate just capitulated to Obama, radio host and constitutional scholar Mark Levin said Tuesday night. The United States Senate just rewrote the treaty provision of the Constitution. That's what Corker did. And he's right, writes Koffler, because a treaty requires two-thirds vote by the Senate to be accepted as law. Corker's bill turns that on its head, allowing Congress to vote down the treaty with Iran, but giving Obama veto power, which must be overridden by a two-thirds vote. Meaning that instead of needing two-thirds of the Senate for his treaty, Obama only needs one-third. And that's supposed to be a victory for the Senate. What Corker has done is legitimize Obama's power grab. Congress could have instead voted this treaty down on its own and then passed legislation withholding funding for its implementation. Obama could also veto the measure withholding funds, which require the same two-thirds override. But at least the point would have been made that he was acting unconstitutionally, and he would be on the record as defying the Congress. As a practical matter, this would have made it far easier for a future president to discard the Iran deal. But Obama and Corker screwed the country. And Rand Paul thinks that's a good thing. It's true international agreements have increasingly over the decades been done by executive action. But an agreement such as this, negotiated over the course of years and involving nuclear weapons for our most pernicious adversary, and therefore the possible destruction of America, must by its nature qualify as a treaty under the Constitution, or there's no Constitution at all. Right, Mr. Paul? Right, Mr. Rand Paul? The founders are very clear on the need for a co-equal role in such critical matters for the Senate, which was originally entrusted not just with approving treaties, but helping negotiate them too. Levin points to Federalist Number 75 by Alexander Hamilton, quote, the treaty-making power of the executive, unquote, in which Hamilton asserts that no single man can be counted on as sufficiently morally pristine to be entrusted solely with such a vast power. Here's what Hamilton wrote. The history of human conduct does not warrant that exalted opinion of human virtue, which would make it wise in a nation to commit interests of so delicate and momentous a kind as those which concern its intercourse with the rest of the world, to the sole disposal of a magistrate, created and circumstanced as would be a president of the United States. It must indeed be clear to a demonstration that the joint possession of the power in question by the President and Senate would afford a greater prospect of security than the separate possession of it by either of them. And yet Obama burned through the treaty clause with the help of Bob Corker. I don't get this. Donald Trump says over and over again, we negotiate bad deals, bad economic deals, bad trade deals, because we're stupid. And he insists that we're going to renegotiate them. And here, according to Corker, he's seriously under consideration for Secretary of State when he was involved in his own way in negotiating not only a stupid deal, but a deal that's going to nuke up our enemy. This isn't about the transition team or anything of the sort. This is a decision Trump has to make. And it will determine what kind of foreign policy the United States has and what kind of administration we're going to have. Hamilton raises an interesting example of how allowing just the president to make treaties can go wrong. He wrote, "A man raised from the station of a private citizen to the rank of chief magistrate," meaning president, "possessed of a moderate or slender fortune, and looking forward to a period not very remote when he may probably be obliged to return to the station from which he was taken, might sometimes be under temptations to sacrifice his duty to his interest, which it would require superlative virtue to withstand." So Hamilton's concern here is with a president being only human, might be tempted to do something that would benefit him financially, since he is soon headed back to the private sector. Now, we're not talking about Trump in this regard. I'm saying, that the framers wanted to be incredibly careful about this. They wanted the full-body politic involved in this process. They didn't say the Senate has to approve a treaty. They said a supermajority of the Senate has to approve a treaty. With the Corker bill, he now has Congress in his pocket as he joins Iran in shredding the Constitution over a Swiss negotiating table. And in 10 to 15 years, when Iran conducts its first nuclear test, Congress can say it had a role in this tragedy. And I would add, Mr. Corker, that's on your resume. And Rand Paul thinks that Bob Corker is highly qualified to be Secretary of State. Mr. 1% in the popular vote. And apparently Donald Trump thinks he's qualified too, because he's in the mix, you see. He's in the mix. Well, as I say, I'll have to wait for Victor Davis Hanson to tell us what to think. But in any event, before I get the direction from him, that's what I think. I'll be right back. The absolute idiocy of Rand Paul trashing Bolton and promoting Corker just tells you that he is an ideologue of the Code Pink type when it comes to foreign policy. Absolutely incredible. We shall see. The fact that Corker's name keeps bouncing around tells me that Trump wants him in a high position somewhere. We're going to find out, I suppose. We're going to find out. What do the groupies think? We don't know. We're just dancing. Yes, we are. We don't know. We're just dancing. What do the Rockettes think? Hey, we don't know. Up the left leg, the right leg, the right leg, the left leg. Oh, very compelling. Let's take some calls. Are we now not believers in peace through strength? Are we believers in isolationism for peace? Which is it, ladies and gentlemen? And you know what's interesting? That's not even accurate. Supporting the evisceration of the treaty clause by our imperial president, that's not even isolationism. That is aggressive intervention in foreign policy where you are arming the wrong side. That's what that is. Unbelievable. Carter, Austin, Texas, Sirius Satellite. How are you?
Mark, how are you, sir?
I'm all right, thank you.
Hey, very good. It's an honor to talk to you this evening.
Thank you.
Hey, before I make my point, I wanted to share with you a little story. I went on a Christmas vacation with my dad a couple years ago. Had your book, Ameritopia, took it with us. We were up in a mountain retreat. I set the book down on an end table. I never got back to it because he took it from me. He read the book. He read the book probably within a day. So I just went back to him for the Cliff Notes. But fantastic book, and I love everything you do, Mark. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So what I was telling your call screener earlier is...
And by the way, that the book also has the benefit of having actually been written by me.
Even better.
We got a big scam that goes on with TV and radio types where they pretend to write their own books, or they have ghostwriters or co-writers, and they're out there, this pushing that. It's a tough business writing a book. If you're really serious about it, it takes an enormous amount of time and effort. Go right ahead.
Was there a soon-to-be ex-president who had a ghostwriter?
Soon-to-be... Oh, you mean Benito? Yes. Apparently two of them. He had 2 phony autobiographies even before he became president, right? I guess he'll have 10 or 12 by the time he leaves, by the time he's an old man.
Yeah, and who's keeping score, right?
Right.
No, but what I was telling your screener was I think Trump, this is just a theory, and, I very much welcome your thoughts on it. I think he's putting these people like Corker and Nikki Haley and obviously with Chris Christie, I think he's putting it out there for now that people they're paying attention. They're going to pay attention to you. They're going to pay attention to Andrew and David. They were before, but now even more so. So he's putting these phonies out there like Corker because of that deal he did on the Iran thing and the whole treaty.
But why put his name out there? How does that in any way, even from, say, a triangulation or Machiavellian perspective, strategically, how does that help him?
Trump?
I don't think it helps him. I think this guy is slobbering all over Trump. He's trying as hard as he can to be in the mix. Now he's in the mix. Then you got guys like Rand Paul out there trashing other candidates. And, he might be the last man standing. And I think we, the people,
I agree.
There's a cult of personality mentality out here that is really appalling to me, among conservatives even, and pseudo-conservatives for sure. Government is about us attempting to influence it. We need to influence what's going on when they have 2 or 3 candidates they're thinking about. We need to make our feelings known. After the fact, it's too late.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But in a way, I do think now people are engaged. People are just so fired up.
Well, other than me, can you name any major host who's talking about Bob Corker? His name's all over the media today.
Other than you, I listened to Andrew this morning, but I did not hear him mention anything about Corker. But you know what? I've kept Corker in the back of my mind, and whenever I heard you talking about him this evening, I got more fired up than I ever had before.
He's all over the media today, and he said, "I'm in the mix." Okay, you're in the mix, and Mr. Code Pink Rand Paul is endorsing you when it comes to foreign policy. Okay, well now they got our attention, don't they?
Let's hope that Trump does the right thing and pulls the rug right out from underneath him.
Well, we'll have to wait for Victor Davis Hanson to tell us what's going on here, because I don't even know if we're allowed to think about this, actually.
Appreciate it, Mark. You're a great American.
All right, my friend. Thank you. No, that's nothing personal. I'm not trying to be offensive or anything. I just don't know if I'm allowed to say anything about this. We even think about it independently. Yeah, because right out of the box, I didn't endorse Trump, and apparently Victor did. So I don't, and I never voted for Barack Obama. I never endorsed him either. I don't know if I ever should have criticized him or commented on his decisions either. I don't know. Very concerned, very confusing at this point. But nonetheless, the way I view these things is it remains our country, no matter who's elected president of the United States or to the Congress, and that we should express ourselves. Because you and I have something in common, all of us here, and that is the best interests of the country, and we have a perspective about that. And it's a consistent perspective, and we'll continue to voice it. I'll be right back. Hello, everybody. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Well, let me say this to Rand Paul and anybody who thinks that Bob Corker would be an excellent Secretary of State. He does need to be confirmed by the United States Senate. And we will fight that. Look, I believe Donald Trump should pretty much have his choices. But there are times when we have to rise up. We cannot support somebody in a Republican administration to take one of the most powerful cabinet posts that exists in the federal government, who has eviscerated a key aspect of the Constitution, the treaty clause, and then he expects to be Secretary of State. I want to remind you that the Constitution belongs to we the people. I want to remind you this government belongs to we the people, not the other way around. That's what the framers intended. And so we have to defend our Constitution whether a junior Republican senator is attacking it in combination with an imperial president, or whether the Electoral College is under attack by the left, which it is. You know, I'm really not in a bad mood tonight. I'm in a great mood. I'm going to have a nice steak after dinner. After the show for dinner. And everything's going well. I just can't handle the conspiracy nonsense. I can't handle the arguments that are repeated on the air and then repeated by callers. You know, facts are facts. We shouldn't act like liberals. There's enough of them. We don't need to join them. We shouldn't act like cultists. We're going to try and help Donald Trump be a successful president. We want to see conservatives appointed. There's no reason the national populists, whatever that is, there's no reason why the nationalist, populist agrarians and constitutional conservatives can't join to stop Bob Corker, a.k.a. Bob Corker. There's no reason we shouldn't join together to stop that man. He despises the Constitution. He undermined the treaty clause. He helped arm up the Iranians. And the fact that Rand Paul is back now that he's won his Senate seat, and making his absurd comments, doesn't mean we shouldn't call him out either. We should. If he believes in the code pink foreign policy, sorry, I can't join him. And what, if you disagree with him, then all of a sudden you're a John McCain fan? No, I'm not a John McCain fan. I don't believe in this aggressive, radical interventionism. But I don't believe in aggressive, radical isolationism either, where you actually arm up the enemy. And the fact that this guy's in the mix for Secretary of State is extremely troubling to me. He shouldn't be on any list, except a stupid list. Just saying. All right, let us see. Raymond, San Diego, California, the great KMFB country. Go.
Yeah, hey, Mark. Listen, I want to talk about the Corker nomination. I think it's a Mr. McConnell play to get a mole or somebody on the inside into the Trump administration to feed back to McConnell, information. And
I don't understand. So the Secretary of State, he'd want him in there to secretly feed him information?
Well, not secretly, but...
Well, don't you think he wants him in there because he agrees with his policies?
Agrees with whose policies? Trump's or McConnell's?
No, you said McConnell wants to get Corker in there so he can get information, which I don't think is true. I think he wants to get Corker in there because he's a sellout just like McConnell, not Trump.
Well, I agree with that part.
By the way, that's KFMB. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Well, I agree with that part of it, but I think McConnell being from the Senate, Corker was probably his right-hand man to tear up the treaty clause. And I
don't even care about any of that. Why does that matter? The guy has to be stopped.
Well, I understand that. Yeah, absolutely. But I'm just...
So you're going to repeat it a third time? Go ahead. Let's hear it. All right. Thanks for your call. I got it. I really did. No, I'm not in a bad mood. I'm in a great mood, actually. But I laugh. I said, okay, I don't think that's true. No, you have to understand what I'm saying. Second time. Okay. Why does it matter? We just had to defeat Corker. No, I agree, but I got it. I did. You think he wants Corker in the Secretary of State slot to provide him information on the sly. I don't even think that makes any sense. Why? What information? That Kuwait's up to something? All right, let's continue. John, Staten Island, New York, the great WABC. Go.
Hello, Mr. Levin. I'm humbled to have the opportunity to speak to you.
Oh, well, don't be that humble, but thank you.
I'm a first-time caller. I have been listening to your show for about a year now, and I credit you for the reason why I am a conservative today.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Randall's comments today were incomprehensible. Bob Corker is highly unqualified to be Secretary of State. In my opinion, Donald... What?
Go right ahead, quickly.
All right. In my opinion, Donald Trump needs to fill his cabinet with solid conservatives. The only way that Trump's administration will be able to administrate the agenda that American voters...
Well, I agree. But, I don't care who he appoints, at some of these lower-level positions. But this is a big deal, Secretary of State. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You want to hear some good news? Mark, please. Okay. It's not the suicide hotline after all. This from the Daily Signal. I like this site a lot. It is related to the Heritage Foundation. Republicans begin to unite around Obamacare repeal plan. House and Senate budget leaders, along with conservative lawmakers, are beginning to unite around a proposal that would avoid a filibuster from Senate Democrats and put a bill repealing key provisions of Obamacare on Trump's desk not long after his inauguration, a bill that is likely to earn his signature. Republicans' talks of repealing the Affordable Care Act became a possibility following Trump's victory, blah, blah, blah. So what are they talking about? What we've been talking about. The reconciliation process. House and Senate budget leaders have endorsed a proposal that involves Congress passing two budget resolutions, one for 2017 and one for 2018, early next year, the first of which would instruct lawmakers to use a budget tool called reconciliation to dismantle the health care law. Now, let me remind you, this is how they passed it in the first place. Do you remember? You remember? Ted Kennedy passed away. His seat was won by a Republican. They didn't have 60 votes. They couldn't kill a threat of a filibuster. So Reid and Pelosi used the budget reconciliation process to give us Obamacare. You remember that? I remember that. Under the reconciliation process, you just need a simple majority vote, 51 in the Senate. So they bypassed the filibuster that way. Because Congress failed to pass a budget resolution for 2017, a proposal stalled in the House. Budget experts say Republicans could pass a revamped fiscal roadmap for next year, one that includes reconciliation instructions for Obamacare's repeal. That reconciliation bill would likely have a delayed enactment date to give congressional Republicans time to craft and pass a replacement plan and to ease the transition for consumers. After passing a budget resolution in 2017, GOP lawmakers could then craft a second budget resolution for 2018, which could also include reconciliation instructions to tackle another legislative priority, such as an overhaul of the tax system. I'm liking this. Now, it depends what we're talking about. They got to repeal the vast majority of Obamacare to make a difference. If this is more fan dancing, we're going to call them on it. But I'm hoping it's not. Using this two-budget approach to repeal Obamacare would give Republicans the chance to put a bill dismantling the health care law on Trump's desk soon after his January 20 inaugurations. Senate Budget Committee Chairman Mike Enzi also endorsed the plan, according to Politico. Now, this guy Enzi, by the way, can't wait to tax your purchases on the Internet. He wants to tax them on the Internet. A federal tax. Well, Mark, you know, the people who own small businesses, they have to pay federal taxes too, you know, and so forth. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, my parents owned small business. There was no internet when they owned their small shop. But there's a cost for doing business on the internet for people who do business on the internet. It's a shipping cost. It's a postage cost. It's a handling cost. So it's not like you're taxed in a brick-and-mortar store, but you're not taxed when you purchase something online. If you purchase a book from Amazon, you pay a shipping fee. And if you want it in 2 days, you pay a higher shipping fee. And if you want it overnight, you pay even a higher shipping fee, as opposed to walking into a store. I'm not really interested in this debate. I'm just saying facts are facts. And the federal government should stay the hell out of it. And all they want to do is keep taxing everybody. They're not interested in fairness anyway. And so they have this plan, you see, the reconciliation plan. It's the same plan when that was discussed when Paul Ryan was on this program. Jim Jordan of Ohio says, health care will be better and more affordable when Obamacare is repealed, plain and simple. Everyone understood that as a huge issue in the campaign. We have to use the reconciliation process, so let's do it right away, but let's do it as quickly as possible, he says. It was part of the mandate that the American people sent to this town last week. And he's quite right. So this is actually a very good idea. Let's make sure, though, that they really take the teeth out of that act, or I don't even understand the point of going through this. And I think they will. And McConnell has committed to it. So let's make sure they get that done. That's a very positive thing, right?
Mark Levin.
Keith Ellison, the potential head of the Democrat National Committee. I wonder if NBC News is going to do a special on Keith Ellison. Keith Ellison is a very, very dangerous man. Let's start with FoxNews.com. Who is Keith Ellison? Left-wing congressman with past ties to the Nation of Islam wants the DNC job. Backed by Chuck Schumer. He was backed by Harry Reid. Backed by Bernie Sanders. In an attempt to stave off a civil war in the ranks, Democrat leaders are scrambling to unite behind a candidate for the party's chairmanship, and have landed for now on a Louis Farrakhan-linked congressman who once called for Dick Cheney's impeachment and compared George W. Bush to Hitler. How come we don't hear that on the Today Show? How come we don't hear that on Good Morning America? How come we don't hear it on whatever the hell the CBS show's called? Why isn't this national news? Why isn't this all over the place? We know why. We saw from WikiLeaks, because the media are in the tank for the Democrats. It doesn't matter who they put in the DNC position. They will be protected. They will be defended. Even worse, they will be celebrated. Never before we had a Muslim American as head of the DNC. But what about this Muslim American? Representative Keith Ellison, Democrat, Minnesota, the first Muslim elected to Congress and a leading progressive among House Democrats, already has picked up the backing of both the Democrat Party's left, with support from Senator Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. That's not the left. They're commies. And its establishment, receiving endorsements from Senate leaders Chuck Schumer and retiring Harry Reid. Chuck Schumer is the establishment? Yes. But he's a left-wing crackpot. Ellison is firmly on the party's left. He has a fax line in his office, but his website says they will not respond to faxes for environmental reasons. He backed Bernie Sanders during the primaries, even introducing him at the convention. Ellison formally announced his bid Monday, saying the party needs to rebuild its ties to voters. Oh, I see. In our country or somewhere else? He said in a statement, this election cycle, we did not motivate enough people to the ballot box. We must champion the challenges of working families and give voters a reason to show up at the polls in 2018 and beyond. Now this man, his associations, his comments, Ellison's 2006 run for his seat was plunged into controversy after the Powerline blog found that he once identified with Farrakhan's Nation of Islam, and in 1998 was referring to himself as Keith X. Ellison. Hey, Mr. Producer, that's what we'll call him from now on. Keith X. And Keith Ellison Muhammad. The Washington Post reported Ellison had defended Farrakhan against accusations of anti-Semitism. Now, isn't this a sick irony? Bannon's being accused of anti-Semitism by the Anti-Defamation League, the head of whom served for Barack Obama. Meanwhile, this guy's a true blue anti-Semite, and you never hear it except from me. Except from me. Unbelievable. Keith X. Farrakhan. He defended Farrakhan against accusations of anti-Semitism in 1989, and in 1990 he called affirmative action a sneaky form of compensation for slavery, calling instead for reparations. Oh, this guy's good. Keith X. Unbelievable. And the controversy, are you listening, NBC, ABC, and CBS? Do you give a damn about the truth ever? Ever? Will Chuck Schumer denounce this man today? No, he already endorsed him. He's a self-hating Jew, Chuck Schumer. That's right, I said it. Let's see. When the controversy erupted in 2006, Ellison acknowledged he had worked with the group, but only for 18 months to help organize Farrakhan's 1995 Million Man March. He distanced himself from both Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam and said he hadn't scrutinized the group's anti-Semitic positions appropriately. Well, then he must have an IQ of -7, because everybody knows what Farrakhan is. It would take all of 12 seconds to know what Farrakhan is. They were and are anti-Semitic, and I should have come to that conclusion earlier than I did, he said. Yet it isn't the only controversy for for Keith X. In 2007, Keith X made a comparison between Bush and 9/11 to Hitler in the 1933 Reichstag fire. 9/11 is just the juggernaut in American history, and it allows it almost like, the Reichstag fire, Ellison said, according to a Daily Telegraph report at the time. After the Reichstag was burned, they blamed the communists for it, and it put the leader of that country, Hitler, in a position where he could basically have authority to do whatever he wanted. Oh, so I guess 9/11 was an inside job. You Democrats, you're really sharp. Rallying around this fool. He later clarified that he indeed believed that Osama bin Laden was responsible for the terror attacks. And man, can this guy step backwards fast. But it wasn't the only controversy for Ellison in 2007, as he also backed a movement to impeach then-Vice President Dick Cheney over his alleged fabrication of intelligence about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. And so here we are. Keith X. There's more. He's got links to the Muslim Brotherhood. He's got links to the radical group that has links to Hamas. That would be CAIR. Keith X. That's quite a guy, that Keith X. I want you to Google his name. I want you to learn who he is. That's the future of the Democrat Party, right there. Keith X. Backed by Schumer. Schumer opening his filthy, poisonous mouth today. Making demands. Getting ready to sabotage this new administration even before it's sworn in. A despicable human being, Schumer. But let's see about Keith X. Mr. Producer, we do this just for fun, ladies and gentlemen. Would you see if Keith X would like to come on the program? He probably thinks this is a controversial program. He being, a Farrakhan guy, a Muslim Brotherhood and CAIR-linked guy, and all the rest of it. First a 9/11 denier, and then he says, no, I didn't mean that, and not a 9/11 denier. Let's see if we can get Keith X on the program. Let's keep a list of the loons on the left who we invite and won't come on the program. We invited Eric Holder, a genius on the Electoral College, to debate me, just a lowly little talk show host. They won't even reply. No, they got to go on Bill Maher, where they throw around the F word left and right. Right, Mr. Holder? You gutless wonder? Now we'll try Keith X. See if Keith X will come on, and we can discuss his background a little bit and what he wants to do for the Democrat National Committee and the country. Maybe we'll explore his views on Jews and Israel. Let's do a little bit of that. While you're at it, Mr. Producer, why don't you invite Chucky Schumer on the program, too? The new Senate Minority Leader. I'm sure he's all excited. His fangs are all sharpened. Let's see if we can get Schumer on here. Hey, Chucky. As you well know, we're heard in New York, big time, Chuck, on the great WABC, 50,000 watts. Let's see if we can get Chucky. Let's see if we can get Keith X and all the other wonderful leaders and statesmen of the Democrat Party. All right, let's take some calls here. Let us go to, excuse me, Billy. Dallas, Texas, the great WBAP. Go.
Hey, Billy. Hey, Mark. Thanks for taking my call. I'm very honored. I just want to say before I tell you what I heard several years ago, my son and I read your dad's book every night. He loves it. He lives by it. It's just a great thing. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Much appreciated.
Yeah. I just wanted to let you and your listeners to know that several years ago, I heard what you were saying about Keith Ellison, how he backtracked when he said he didn't do his research right on the Nation of Islam, that on the anti-Semitism. Lest anybody be fooled by this guy. I heard him at a conference up in Minnesota several years ago when he was first on the political scene, and I was up there volunteering with my church because we wanted to help a refugee family. And I had no idea what I was getting into in that arena, but that's a different story. But this guy told all of us that 9/11 motivated him to make it his primary goal in politics to let as many people into this country from the dangerous countries where the hijackers came from. And he went on and on about it, that America needed to experience what these people experienced in their home countries. And he said that was his only goal, or not his only goal, but his primary goal by entering politics is to bring as many of them in as possible.
Can you... Corker?
No, Ellison. Keith Ellison.
Oh, Ellison. Yeah. Ellison.
He spoke at a conference up in Minneapolis. It must have been April of 2011. And that could easily be found where he's just preaching, just bring as many more dangerous people into this country.
He is a radical nut job of the worst kind.
He's absolutely dangerous.
And the fact that nobody else has drawn attention on this guy that I know of in a national forum, the fact that NBC Nightly News and ABC and CBS are all ignoring it, other than to say that he's being backed by the progressives in the Democrat Party. You mean there are actually Democrats who aren't progressives? And it's getting minimal attention. Minimal attention. This guy backs organizations, or he's backed organizations that are clearly anti-Semitic. They're even Holocaust deniers. Meanwhile, they're attacking Bannon, who's pro-Israel. It's just incredible to me. Whatever. All right, my friend. Thanks for your call. Let's continue. Scott, Orange County, New York, on the Mark Levin app. How may I help you?
Hey, how you doing, Mark? It's an honor to talk to you.
Thank you.
I was calling in regards to Ted Cruz had a Senate hearing against Keith Ellison, Keith X, as you say, and one of his cohorts, Andre Carson.
Yeah.
It looks like the
Andre X.
Andre X, right. And the left's really gone out of their way to ostracize Senator Cruz.
Oh, yes, because it's not Ted X, it's Ted Cruz. Well, that's right, but look how the Democrat leadership is embracing Keith Ellison. Look how Chuck Schumer, who is Jewish, as am I, embraces a man that had the Democrat National Committee, who was supportive of Farron Kopp and now pretends he wasn't until he decided to run for office, who pretends he never heard of any of Farron Kopp's anti-Semitic words. He wishes he would have looked into it more deeply. A man who is tied at the hip with the organization CAIR, which is, as many argue, including me, a Hamas front group. It certainly started out that way. Who has been very positive and supportive of the Muslim Brotherhood. You have a Jewish senator in Chuck Schumer. You have another pretend Jewish senator in Bernie Sanders who are promoting this guy to head the Democrat National Committee. Now, where's all the attention on that? How come people aren't shoving microphones in Chuck Schumer's face, asking him why he's a self-hating Jew? That's right, I said it, and I mean every word of it. I really do. All right, that's enough. I'll be right back.